Welcome in to the Tennessee Pro Football Podcast, and welcome back, Titans fans, to that winning feeling. Preseason or regular season doesn't matter. For the first time since November 2024, Tennessee are 23-20 winners over the Atlanta Falcons, a much better second preseason game compared to the opener in Tampa Bay. Terry, you were there for both joint practices in Flowery Branch, as well as had coverage from Mercedes-Benz, the game there. What were your initial takeaways from the week between the Titans and the Falcons?
Well, not to throw, a rain on the parade here, but, for the most part in the joint practices where, it was a lot of ones versus ones, twos versus twos, et cetera, I felt like the Titans in a lot of areas had a hard time stacking up with the Falcons, especially with the Falcons skill position people on offense and with the Falcons secondary with the Titans receivers going against them outside of Calvin Ridley. It just felt like that the Falcons had the upper hand in terms of talent. And that was especially true on the first day. Second day was a little bit more even, and the Titans kind of, looked a little bit better in several areas. The first day I watched the offense, and it was a dreadful showing for them. I was told that the defense got cooked as well. Second day, I watched the defense, and the offense was sort of bland, but the defense started slowly and then got a little better as the practice went on.
The Titan insider, Terry McCormick and Blaine Kellar here to give you a breakdown of this past week of Titans football and the week to come as we near the end of the preseason. We're brought to you by the Mint Gaming Hall. On the other side of this break, we'll give you a scoring breakdown, some takeaways, what Cam Ward said this week for Titans preseason. Stay tuned.
The winning just got closer. All new Sportsbook, the latest gaming machines, live horse racing, and more. The Mint Gaming Hall, Kentucky Downs.
Winning just got closer.
He shoots, and he scores!
At Delta Dental of Tennessee, we know our success begins and ends with providing superior quality service, and that includes serving those who need it most. This year, we're celebrating 25 years of giving back to the community we call home. Delta Dental, along with our Smile 180 Foundation, supports Tennessee's dental colleges and oral health education, children's hospitals, free and reduced cost dental clinics, and other like-minded charities. Here's to the next 25 plus years of ensuring healthy smiles.
They walk among us, but at 240 miles per hour, they become something more. They're thrill seekers, risk takers, and maybe just a little bit unhinged. Buckle up. This new era of speed, this racing revolution, it's just getting started.
Hi, I'm Stephanie Miller. Main Street Media is partnering with Borchetta Bourbon Music City Grand Prix at the Nashville Superspeedway to send a family of four to the race August 31st. To register, please visit any Main Street Media website and look for the Register Here banner. You'll also receive some fantastic Borchetta Bourbon Music City merchandise. We look forward to seeing you at the race.
Catching up on Cam Ward and the Titans' second preseason game on the other side of this break of the Tennessee Pro Football Podcast. But first, I'll tell you about our sponsors in the Mint Gaming Hall. Circus Sports, the largest sports book in Kentucky, is now open for business at the Mint Gaming Hall in Franklin, Kentucky. Be sure to check them out. An 85-foot sports book screen and stadium-style seating, the Mint is the place to be for any sports fan, college sports, pro football, and beyond. Again, Circus Sports and the Mints are proud sponsors of the Tennessee Pro Football Podcast, located just north of Nashville off I-65 North and exit 121. Terry, like we said, you were present for the joint practices in Flowery Branch, where Cam Ward made some pretty strong declarations about the Titans' offense and specifically his receiver corps.
Yeah, he really did. I mean, you want to see a young kid show confidence in his teammates, show confidence in, what he thinks they can be. Now, do I think they're a top 10 offense? No. Do I think that the receiving core that the Titans have right now is top 5 in the league? No way. But you like to see Cam Ward have that type of confidence in them. And maybe, he can help elevate their play as it goes on and he gets, more acclimated and more used to life in the NFL. And maybe the Titans can get him some more weapons on down the line.
Cam Ward had to put his money where his mouth was a little bit for that preseason game. No Calvin Ridley, no Tyler Lockett, and apparently no Van Jefferson, considering the drop that kind of happened in that play in the one of the first drives that Cam Ward had. You see there on the screen, Van Jefferson, apparently, according to Cam Ward, said this ball was a little out in front of him. The Ravenwood product unable to bring it in. One great pass off play action. Terry, what did you kind of make of that comment that Cam relayed through Van Jefferson?
Well, I think, Cam did his part by, taking accountability for it, but I got to put the vast majority of this on Van Jefferson. That ball needs to be caught. I don't care if you have to lay out for it. I know you want to catch it in stride and keep running because it might be a touchdown, but that football has to be caught. That when Cam Ward makes a throw like that and it's, on the money like that was, even though it was, a couple of inches out, I think Van Jefferson as an NFL receiver has to make that grab.
Looking at Cam Ward's stats for the preseason game against the Falcons, he finished 2 of 7 for 42 yards, 35 of which came on his first pass attempt to Alec Io Manor, 35-yard pickup where it was a crosser to Alec, and he did a lot of the work there. But a couple of strong passes. Still no preseason touchdown for Cam Ward, though. He did lead a drive in Tampa that led to a Tony Pollard touchdown. Terry, is it a big deal, a little deal, or no deal at all that Cam Ward still doesn't have a preseason score?
It's a little deal, I think. I mean, it will come eventually. He's going to be the starting quarterback as, for the entire season, barring injury. So it will come. But I will say this, the low red zone work that this team has done, especially the first unit, does appear to be a little bit of a concern. That was actually one area last year where the Titans were, I wouldn't say great, but they were decent at it. It wasn't an area of deficiency like we saw in so many other areas of the passing game, such as, pass protection and things like that. But, the red zone was an area where the Titans held their own. I think that will come, but, it's just one of those things, too, as Cam Ward learns it, the more the field shrinks down in that area near the goal line, the more precise you have to be with your reads and your throws. And I think he's still getting a feel for that.
The Titans have one more week of preseason practices. They have a preseason game Friday for the first time at home against the Minnesota Vikings. What do you need to see out of Cam Ward in this week, in the build-up to the Vikings and then in the Minnesota game?
Well, I think you just want to see him have a good week of practice. You want to see him, getting receivers other than Calvin Ridley involved. And I think it may have been a little bit of a blessing, even though there were only 2 completions, it may have been a little bit of a blessing that Calvin Ridley sat this game out against the Falcons after a couple of good days of practice against them. So it's going to be interesting. I want to see him get Chika Okonkwo involved. We saw Gunnar Helm, but that was from Brandon Allen. So you'd like to see Alec Eilmanor continue to develop and Chimere Dike. I think when you start to look at some of these young targets that Cam Ward has, I think you'd like to see some of those guys along with Cam take a nice step forward and put together a good drive, against the Vikings. Remains to be seen. Brian Callahan hasn't revealed yet, who's going to play what in the preseason. But, I'd like to see more of the young receivers because I think the more the young receivers come on, the more that the less you're going to have to rely on the Van Jeffersons and Tyler Lockett's of the world, who may not have quite, a lot left in the tank, quite frankly.
Yeah, you said it there. Probably a good thing in all to try to force a connection a little bit for Cam Ward and these young receivers. I think you really need to see a fast start out of these Titans, not only in the preseason game, but in these practices leading up to it too. Going back to Tampa Bay and last week in Atlanta, both first days of joint practices were admittedly slow. And beyond that, considering what the players said. So you want to see a good first day of practice when the Titans ramp back up getting ready for Minnesota.
Yeah, you absolutely do. Even though it's just Titans on Titans this week in terms of practices, the Vikings won't be in here for joint practices. They're just in for the game and back out. And then roster cuts are coming up shortly after that. So there are a lot of guys who need to make a good impression, have a good week of practice, and also have, put something good on tape against the Vikings. And I think that, you talked about the slow starts that the Titans have been having. I think that's starting to become a little bit of a concern because this is not a team, if this carries over to games, this is not a team that's built to come back from 14, points down in the first quarter. A little bit like last year. They didn't really have the horses to do that a whole lot, and they didn't do that a whole lot. So when you get down on the scoreboard, you can start to dig your way back out, but it's a big hole given the lack of weapons that this team has right now and the ability to strike quickly per se. Because the NFL, it's much better to get a quick strike chunk play, which the Titans, had on occasion last year, but also, misfired a lot last year, than to try and go 13 plays and 85 yards every time you have the football, because defenses in the NFL are too good to allow that to happen very often.
Slow starts, Terry. Is it fair to correlate the joint practices to the start of games whenever you look at the fact that the Titans ones are practicing and the Falcons ones or Tampa's ones are practicing compared to a preseason game where a lot of times you're not going to have those starters in there? Can you kind of view and correlate those slow starts to a game from the joint practices?
Yeah, I think so. I think, when you talk about, the slow starts, that's coming from ones on ones, twos on twos, people that you theoretically you're going against would be on your same caliber, the same level. When you're going ones against twos, the ones should have the advantage. And I think, you saw that a little bit out of the Titans against Tampa Bay in the opener, where they put together a nice touchdown drive. They kept the pocket clean for Cam Ward. He was able to make some good reads, but he was going against guys who are back of the roster guys. Some may be here for the Bucs, some may not. And when you're going up against the ones, it certainly ramps it up a little bit more. And I think that's what the Titans have to try and, overcome, especially as they try to build this thing, because they are a little bit short talent-wise. I don't think anybody is sugarcoating that at all. And you cannot afford slow starts. You need to come out and, with your best punch right off the bat if you can, because this team would do much better playing with a lead or at least in a close ball game type situation rather than trying to rally if it's down 14-3.
We're going to give you a scoring breakdown of Friday's preseason game. But before we do that, give you another reminder of our friends at the Mint Gaming Hall. Live horse racing returns August 28th to Kentucky Downs and the Mint. That's next week. It's one of 7 live horse racing events on the track in Franklin, Kentucky. Kentucky Downs and the Mint are proud sponsors, again, of the Tennessee Pro Football Podcast. Admission is free. Again, August 28th, live horse racing returning to the Mint. Feel the action, live horse racing at Kentucky Downs. Starting with the first score, a defensive score for the Titans. It came from North Greenville, then Michigan State, then UDFA bounce around Kendall Brooks, who read a route, jumped a route pretty well, I felt like, on Easton Stick. And then, as you can see, returned it pretty much untouched all the way for a touchdown, 53 yards. I thought he was one of a couple of defensive backs who played pretty well compared to that first preseason game, Terry.
Yeah, I thought so too. It was a good play. He's one of the guys that has shown up occasionally in these joint practices that they've had, and that's a good thing to see, because I think we all would agree that the secondary depth has not been very strong for the Titans thus far in camp. That beyond the starters, especially at corner, even though Brooks is more of a safety, there's some questions, let's just say, some question marks. And Kendall Brooks making this play right here certainly should turn some heads, because that's not something we saw a lot of out of the Titans defense in any aspect last year.
Second score for the Titans. We've already talked a little about Gunnar Helm, mentioned him so far. You want to talk about a hand in the face, hand literally in the face for Gunnar Helm for this touchdown over two defenders, 32 yards from Brandon Allen. He was also a big factor in that 2-minute drive leading to the score as well. Each week, each day, it kind of feels like Gunnar Helm's looking better and better for the Titans.
Yeah, this is the young man that has flashed, and, he's not been consistent yet, but he has flashed and made some nice plays, can catch the football. I think he blocks a little bit better than maybe they had thought he would, because he had been primarily a blocking tight end, I think, his first couple of years with the Longhorns. So he is versatile. He's the inline tight end. I think you may see the Titans go with a little bit more two tight end sets this year, featuring Helm and Chikakonko on the field at the same time. But this was a heck of a catch that he made in between two Falcons defenders. And yes, it's against the twos, but certainly an NFL caliber play. And Gunnar Helm is a guy that the Titans really need to come on if they're going to make some strides this year.
Going on to the third quarter, lots of running room for Jordan Mims and Jamar Jefferson. But I feel like, again, we've got to give some love and some highlights and some props to the offensive line, Terry. These guys really played well, not only in protecting all three quarterbacks in Cam Ward, Brandon Allen, Trevor Siemian now. They also opened up running holes. I thought Jackson Slater, John Ojukwu, Andrew Rupsich, all of those guys blocked really well for a third-string running back in Jamar Jefferson or Jordan Mims.
Yeah, I thought that was a nice looking drive there using the run game. And it's good to see some of those backup offensive linemen start to step up, and because they're going to need somebody to claim a role. There was a scary, scary moment in the first part of the game when Dan Moore got rolled up on and had to leave for a play or two there, but he was able to make it back in. And I think that finding some, lineman number 6, 7, 8, and 9 is very imperative for this team right now, because very rarely does a starting offensive line have all 5 guys make it through the season unscathed.
Yeah, second drive of the game for the Titans. Dan Moore went out, returned, and then I think Brian Callahan said afterward, kind of a minor thing. I'm sure you're at the Titans facility right now, so on the other side of this show, probably get more of an update on one of the Titans' free agent acquisitions. Final score of the game for the Titans was a Joey Sly 23-yard field goal in the fourth quarter. What do we make of Joey Sly right now? He missed the extra point on that Kendall Brooks pick 6, then nailed the chip-in field goal. It's kind of been a wishy-washy preseason for him. Is that how you describe it?
I'm a little bit concerned about Joey Sly. I mean, he's different than what the Titans have had at kicker the last couple of years with, Nick Folk being, just completely automatic from about 53 yards in. You knew that when he lined up, it was probably going through the uprights. I think what the Titans were looking for out of Joey Sly, somebody with a much bigger leg, somebody who can, make a 58, 59-yard field goal if you needed. He made a 66-yarder at the open practice at Nissan Stadium, very early on in camp. So he's got the leg strength, but it does concern me, the missed extra point. He's missed some field goals in practice from like between 40 and 49. And those are for a team that, and for a team that needs to capitalize on every scoring opportunity that it gets. It's nice to hit from 57, but I need that 47-1 consistently.
Yeah, Titans fans know all too well the troubles of having an inconsistent field goal kicker. Before Nick Folk, it was a revolving door there for a couple of years. That's your scoring breakdown and some thoughts on Cam Ward from preseason game number 2. We're going to take one final break here on the Tennessee Pro Football Podcast. When we return, I'm going to give you an expansive stock report from this second preseason game. We're brought to you by the Mint Gaming Hall. Stay tuned. You're watching the Tennessee Pro Football Podcast on Main Street Media Television.
The winning just got closer. All new Sportsbook, the latest gaming machines, live horse racing, and more. The Mid Gaming Hall, Kentucky Downs.
Winning just got closer.
He shoots, and he scores!
At Delta Dental of Tennessee, we know our success begins and ends with providing superior quality service, and that includes serving those who need it most. This year, we're celebrating 25 years of giving back to the community we call home. Delta Dental, along with our Smile 180 Foundation, supports Tennessee's dental colleges and oral health education, children's hospitals, free and reduced cost dental clinics, and other like-minded charities. Here's to the next 25 plus years of ensuring healthy smiles.
They walk among us, but at 240 miles per hour, they become something more. They're thrill seekers, risk takers, and maybe just a little bit unhinged. Buckle up. This new era of speed, this racing revolution, it's just getting started.
Hi, I'm Stephanie Miller. Main Street Media is partnering with Borchetta Bourbon Music City Grand Prix at the Nashville Superspeedway to send a family of 4 to the race August 31st. To register, please visit any Main Street Media website and look for the Register Here banner. You'll also receive some fantastic Borchetta Bourbon Music City merchandise. We look forward to seeing you at the race.
Our Titans stock report is brought to you once again by the Mint Gaming Hall. They've got live music. They've got a great steakhouse, a brand new hotel in Spring Hill Suites. Be sure to check all of that out up in Franklin, Kentucky. And Terry, why don't you kick us off with your stock ups from Titans preseason game number 2?
All right, I'm going to go with one of the obvious ones. I think that's Cedric Gray, the linebacker who many thought was not going to get into the competition there with James Williams to start opposite Cody Barton. But Cedric Gray made the most of his opportunity in the game Friday night against the Falcons, had a sack on the Falcons' first drive that ended that march. Later had another tackle for loss, had an interception that was actually voided by a penalty, but certainly a very active game for Cedric Gray, and he's giving James Williams a run for his money there at that second inside linebacker spot for the Titans. Going to give a stock up to Gunnar Helm because obviously with that catch that he made, the Titans are going to need him to show up and to show up big at times as this season goes along. And I'm going to give a stock up to Alec Iomanner. He had a rough couple of days in the joint practices. There was the first day where he looked very timid going up trying to get 50-50 balls, and the defensive backs were just owning him, so to speak, in terms of knocking the ball away. But in the game, he made a couple of big plays, had the nice 35-yard catch from Cam Ward. I think that, that he's certainly a guy that while he still has to find that consistency. I think he's a guy that certainly can help this team. And the sooner he does that, I think the better off the Titans are going to be because they need young players to start, contributing consistently.
Yeah, some young players part of my stock up as well. There were a lot more stock ups for me this week compared to last week. I was kind of looking through the roster and trying to figure out what would be a stock down because I really thought overall it was, for the younger players for the Titans, a pretty solid performance. Specifically with the cornerbacks, Marcus Harris, the rookie, had 2 pass deflections, deflected a deep ball to Chris Bailey. He made a handful of plays in the first half there, had 4 tackles. Solid performance from him, I thought. Gabe Judy Lawley rectified a poor performance from the first go-around in Tampa Bay, trying to solidify himself as some secondary depth. James Lynch had a strong first play, fending off two blockers on the defensive line. Again, lots of Titans didn't play in this preseason opener, so the defensive line, again, showcasing, trying to find some depth there, and James Lynch made a solid play there to start. So I thought defensively there were a lot of stock ups, especially from some of the younger guys. What do you have for stock down?
Well, obviously, we're going to start with Van Jefferson, dropping that ball that Cam Ward put on him there that he wasn't able to haul in. I think, when you're Van Jefferson or even Tyler Lockett, you got to know that, there are young players nipping at your heels for playing time, and you got to make plays for your young quarterback. The Cam Ward needs as many reliable playmakers as he can get if he's going to develop and he's going to learn and grow this season as the Titans quarterback and be that for the future. So you don't need veterans, dropping the balls, quite literally there and not, doing their portion of what needs to be done, because a play like that could have given Cam Ward the confidence, and maybe the Titans go down and get at least 3, if not 7 out of that drive. So, I'm going to have to give a stock down there. Also going to have to give a stock down to, some of just, I guess, Joey Sly and Johnny Hecker, the specialist. Not particularly good in the joint practices. Hecker had some flutter punts that seemed to be shanked a little bit. Didn't really see a lot of that in the game. Sly, we already talked about, missed the extra point and then later made a field goal. I need to see more consistency from him from 40 to 49 yards, because that's where kickers make their money and that's where games are won and lost, much more so than on 57-yard field goals.
Yeah, if I need to pinpoint something here for a stock down, I think it's a continuation of what you said last week, Terry. These edge rushers just haven't really shown a whole bunch, if anything at all, to really show that they're going to be able to show something during the regular season. Femi Oladejo is still kind of a non-factor. Arden Key, I think he played well in one of the joint practices.
He was really good the second day. The second day. But Arden kind of is what he is at this point. He's a guy who's going to show up, make a splash play occasionally, and then just kind of, go back to being, run-of-the-mill. I think, the Titans, the one thing that could really transform this defense would be a special player somewhere on that defense to complement Jeffrey Simmons and be that. Maybe Femi Oladejo can be that in time, but he's certainly a project. He's certainly a guy that is going to have to put in a lot of work in order to make an impact this season.
Yeah, that edge rusher position, something to watch, to see where the Titans are going to maybe make some moves near cut down day to try to bolster that. Terry, last week we made a proclamation that Tim Boyle maybe would stick on the roster. Then later that day he was cut. Let's see if we can do 1 for 2 here. Is L'Jarius Sneed going to come off a PUP this week?
I think the Titans, they would hope so, but I'm not going to say anything with L'Jarius Sneed until I see him actually out there on the field practicing and doing something other than working on the side with a trainer. It's come to that point where it's, I was in Missouri on Saturday catching my Yankees playing the Cardinals. You know what state Missouri is? It's the show me state. Show me, L'Jarius Sneed, that you want to play football, that you're healthy enough to play football, and that you're still capable of playing football.
A challenge and a proclamation to end us off here on the Tennessee Pro Football Podcast. Our third show comes to a close here. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you to the Mint Gaming Hall for sponsoring us. And stay tuned to TitanInsider.com for all of the Titans news this week and the preseason game Friday against the Minnesota Vikings. We will see you back here, same time, same place next week on Main Street Media Television. Thanks for watching.